Welcome back, Trailblazers. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to talk about a tool that has completely transformed the way I plan and navigate my hikes, AllTrails Plus. As a Trailheads ambassador and the organizer of the Yakima Valley Trekkers, I'm out on the trails a lot. One of my favorite features of AllTrails Plus is the ability to edit and create my own maps. Conditions change, fallen trees, washed out sections, or even a last-minute reroute. And with AllTrails Plus, I can adjust my route on the fly and share it with others so everyone stays informed and safe. AllTrails Plus also gives you offline maps, wrong turn alerts, and 3D trail previews to help you stay on track and make the most of your adventure. And the best part, you can get 30% off an AllTrails Plus membership with my exclusive link in the episode show notes. So whether you're planning your next big trek or just looking for a new trail to explore, AllTrails Plus has you covered. Check it out and let's hit the trail. Welcome to Season 12 of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and each week we're hitting the trail through conversations with extraordinary hikers from across the United States and beyond. Fall is one of those magical times to be outdoors. The air is crisp, the trails are lined with golden leaves, and every step feels like an invitation to slow down and soak in the season. This year, I've had the privilege of sitting down with hikers who bring the same richness to their stories. From thru-hikers reflecting on lessons learned, to everyday adventurers chasing larch season, and finding peace on quiet trails, their voices remind us that the outdoors isn't just about reaching summits. It's about connection, reflection, and discovery. So lace up your boots, grab your favorite warm drink for the trail, and get ready. Season 12 is here, and the conversations ahead are as colorful as the fall landscapes we love. This week, we sit down with Ben, better known on trail as Paladin, whose story threads together the Appalachian Trail, the PCT, Trans-Catalina sunrises, and a whole lot of good humanity along the way. From childhood summers tracking animals on his grandfather's farm to section hiking the Smokies in college, his path into long-distance hiking runs deep. The AT became home, the PCT became a dream, and somewhere between snowfields and desert rain, a trail name was born from a Western theme song and a code of honor he still stands by. We talk about post-holing misery, trail family dynamics, the power of kindness from strangers, and how he now pays it forward with legendary trail magic. Full resupplies, campfires, and multi-course meals for weary hikers. At the heart of it, legacy, connection, and the belief that moments shared outside can change us forever. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Ben. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I have a really exciting guest with me today. He is a thru-hiker, a father, a hunter, fisherman, sports enthusiast, and woodworker, as well as a world traveler, and he's going to be sharing all about his experiences both on and off the trail. Thank you so much, Paladin, for coming on the podcast. We always like to start off by having our guests share a little bit about themselves and how they got started hiking.
It's an honor to be here. I'm grateful to be on. How I started, it goes back ways because my mom is originally from Maryland Eastern Shore, and most of her family have farms, and a couple of them are big ones. So her father and her brother-in-law both kind of took me under their wing real early. I have an older brother, and my father was an elected official for most of my childhood, and some of the trips that my brother and my parents got to go on, I wasn't old enough yet. So I would go to the farms and ride horses, track animals, and just be out in nature, especially in the summertime. So that's kind of how I got my start in nature per se. And then it pretty much grew from there. Like I said, riding horses, hunting, fishing. My uncle, who is also my godfather, he was a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Refuge officer, along with being a farmer and a father of three, and a husband, and a trapper, and a waterman, and a hunting guide, and a firearms instructor, and a wildland firefighter. Needless to say, he was a busy guy, but super good to me. And same with my grandfather. He was a firefighter along with being a farmer, and he had two big farms. He had a 350-acre farm and a 150-acre farm. So busy dude. And of course, he instilled in me, like I said, all the tracking and love of nature. So I got it pretty early.
And your first name is Ben. Your trail name's Paladin. We always like to, ask guests with trail names the origin story behind it. Can you share a little bit about how you got your trail name?
Oh boy, yes, I can share the full story if you so desire. So I originally had one from when I did the AT, and actually got it when I was at Western Carolina University. And when I was hiking AT, and I did the AT Sobo, and I kept hearing, gosh, by the time I was like midway through, got to Harper's Ferry, there were probably like 4 or 5 other people that had the same trail name as I did. So when I finished the AT, I was just like, man, if I ever do another long trail, I am definitely going to be open to a different trail name, something a little more unique. So a couple years later, was hiking the PCT Nobo, and I was about 2-3 weeks into it, and this was back away, so it wasn't as busy as it is now. I like to sing. I like to kind of do my own thing. I was in my own little world, and all of a sudden, I heard somebody say, "I know that song," and I was singing the theme song to an old Western called Have Gun Will Travel. And she runs up next to me, and she introduces her name as Jukebox. She's like, "Do you have a trail name?" I was like, "Well, I don't have a PCT trail name." She's like, "You're a Paladin." I was like, thought about it for about 5 seconds, and I was like, I accept that one. And one of the reasons I did, it goes back a little bit ways. I was a history minor at Western, and so I know a little bit of the history behind the actual name of the Paladin, which were Charlemagne's 12 Paladin knights that he had back in the day. One of the other aspects of my life is I'm a biker, and I was in an MC for a while, not an outlaw MC, but an MC. And there was a little confrontation at a drinking establishment. Some guys were giving some young ladies a hard time, and my friends and I intervened, and after taking care of some business, we were outside, and they were like, "What the heck was that? Are you," I'm paraphrasing, I'm being kind. It was like, "Are you some kind of knight in shining leather?" So my biker nickname for quite a while was Knight, shortened to Knight. So I was like, okay, Paladin, Knight, those all go together. Plus, I try to live my life pretty honorably. I try to do the right thing, try to be chivalrous, try to look out for people. That's the full version.
That's great that, it kind of came together from your MC portion of your life to your trail life. That's really cool. Now, you're multifaceted. You describe yourself as not just a thru-hiker, but also a husband, father, hiker, environmentalist, sports enthusiast, woodworker, and world traveler. Some of these intersect, but how do all of those identities shape the way that you experience the outdoors?
They all have a part in it. Growing up, I did just about every sport that was available at that time except for lacrosse. I was like, looking back, I was like, man, why didn't I play lacrosse? I did everything else. So sports were always a big part of my life. I was an okay athlete. I wouldn't say I was world class in anything. So that's a part of it. Plus, I'm actually a district supervisor as a career for Parks and Recreation in Maryland. So that plays a part in it. Been woodworking since I was a little kid. My parents had and still have a real estate business. And when I was on a construction site, I'd pick up pieces of wood and nails, and I'd literally make my own toys. That's not something most kids do, but then it grew and became one of the things I like to do. So I do some fine woodworking as part of my job. About 15 years ago, the director and the chief of my department came to me and it's like, how would you like to open up a municipally run woodworking shop? I'm like, has anybody done that anywhere else? And they're like, go ahead and figure it out. So did some research, and I was like, well, I'm not seeing one in Maryland, the East Coast, or anywhere else. So we got to write the book on this one. So it was kind of kid in the candy shop. I'm not going to reveal the dollar amount, but it was a lot. And I got to go spend a lot of money on really good tools. So fast forward, we have about 150 members in the wood shop, and it's all volunteer run by about 21 volunteer foremen and 4 women, including this one right here.
Oh, man. Yeah, I bet it was like kid in a candy store when
it's funny whenever I bring, like, I am thankful every day that that's still an aspect of my career, and I can say I'm still kind of oversee that. But whenever I have friends from out of town, it's like, you know, I go see the wood shop, and they're like, yes. So it's like kid in the candy store, big toys, all sorts of fun stuff. And the environmental part was, again, instilled from me by my parents and my grandfather, and definitely by my Uncle Bill, who was big environmentalist because he was wildland refuge officer. In fact, he was a senior one at Blackwater Refuge in Dorchester County, Maryland.
That's on my bucket list from a previous guest to visit that refuge. I hear great things about it.
Let me know, because my mom actually inherited the 150-acre farm that's maybe a mile and a half away from it. Plus, I still have family there. So if you want to camp out on our farm, let me know.
Will do. Now, going back even further, you graduated from Western Carolina University. Was that where your love of long-distance hiking first started, or did the seeds for that come later?
Nope, that came from Western. I'd done some travel, a good bit of traveling before. In fact, I did one overseas excursion solo, but that was kind of a hybrid. It was kind of hike, kind of bus, kind of all sorts of all over the place, and it was extremely poorly planned. That was we'll talk about that one later maybe. But the actual long distance hiking definitely started at Western, because we have the Great Smoky Mountains right behind us, and Appalachian Trail was 15-20 minute drive away. So we had all that space and all that fun and just a little bit of gear, and you're good to go. In fact, my first overnight, or first 2 nights, I guess it was when some friends I met the first semester there, and they were like, "Hey, we've got a permit for the Smokies. You wanna go?" I was like, "Absolutely, of course I do." So cobbled up some secondhand gear and got all my stuff together, made sure everything was good to go. And as it happens in the hiker world, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, one by one, everybody found something else to do. I was like, hand over that permit. I'm going solo. So off I went, and I was hooked ever since. In fact, I did most of the southern half while I was in school. I just suction hiked it whenever I had a chance.
That's incredible that ultimately led you to thru-hike both the PCT and the AT, 2 very distinct long-distance trails. I know we could probably do an episode on each one of the experiences, but in your personal experience, how do the 2 compare, and did one surprise you more than the other?
This is a question that anybody who's done more than one of the trails always gets, and I love this question, to be honest. And my answer is the AT will always feel like home. AT was my first one. AT was my go-to. Even further back when I was a little kid and going to camp, we hiked a small section of it when I was at Camp Anadokin when I was a little kid. So the AT is like, every time I go do a section hike on the AT or test out some gear, it's like going home. So AT is home to me. PCT is like a dream come true. It's just everything you could ever want in a hiking, outdoor, naturalist experience you get on the PCT. You get the desert, you get the mountains, you get the vistas, you get everything, including rain dawn, especially in Oregon. Snow, post-holing, all of it.
Yeah, I feel like the Pacific Northwest, the PCT experience is either you get it when it's blazing hot or it's on and off rain throughout the majority of it. There's no like really in between.
It wasn't too bad. I mean, I even got rained in the desert some, but it seemed like, which I tell everybody, I'm just like, man, wasn't the desert hot? I was like, oh yeah, it was hot. And then it got really cold at night. And then I occasionally got rained on. So...
Now, this next one's going to be a tough one because I know that almost each day, each experience, each connection, each person you met was a memorable experience. But looking back, what was your most memorable or maybe transformative moment on either of the trails?
Ooh, I go back to the AT on this one, and to this day, it hits me. It brings up all the feels and makes me tear up a little bit. I remember being 2 or 3 weeks away from completing the AT. And like I said, I did Sobo. And I came across, I can't remember the guy's name. I wish I could. He's this old school, super rugged thru-hiker. And we were talking a little bit, and he's like, how far away do you think you can make it to Springer? I was like, I'll get there in, I figure, about 3 weeks. And he's like, remember this. Once you get to Springer, you will be a real deal thru-hiker. There is no former thru-hiker. Nobody can ever take away this experience for the rest of your life.
And then on the PCT, is there a moment or memorable experience that kind of sticks out for you?
There are a bunch. Some are so good. Unfortunately, on the other end, I mean, there's just so many great ones. And I don't want to take away from the entire mystique and aura and everything else of the PCT, along with the post holing, along with the water carries, especially back then and everything else. But I do remember one. I was kind of on the fringe of a tramily. There were 4 in the group, and I was number 5. And 2 women, 2 men. I remember kind of getting along pretty well with one of the female hikers and thought something was going to be happening there. And one night, I don't know what happened. It was like it was well past hiker midnight. This is like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And like an argument starts breaking out, and just all of the family tea starts getting spilled, and just really nasty stuff. And then my name gets thrown in there by the young lady that I was rather infatuated with. I'm just like, yep, I'm done. Peace. And literally pack up all my stuff. And I remember saying, I know you're not leaving. I know you're not leaving. I know you're not leaving. I was like, oh, yes, I am. So down the trail I went. Yeah, that was a memorable moment too. So there's tons of them. Good, bad. It's not all rainbows and roses on the trail. A lot of the time it is, but tough times too.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because that's what a lot of the thru-hikers have been saying. It's, you could see it on Instagram sometimes where it's all rainbows and sunshine, but just like the trail itself, there's peaks and valleys and good and bad days. But that's the beauty of being on the trail is, challenging moments, rewarding moments, and everything in between. Now, one thing that's beautiful about the PCT and AT is trail magic. And that really seems to play a big role in your story. What does both being a recipient as well as a giver of trail magic mean to you now?
Thank you for asking this question, because it's so meaningful in so many different ways. Because trail magic is just anything positive and uplifting that happens on a trail. I remember my early hikes. I was on top of a mountain, and it was misty and it was chilly, and I had just gotten to the summit, and all of a sudden in this mist, you saw the sun just coming down, and it was right in the spot I'd hiked into, and nobody else around. That can be trail magic, a moment in nature by yourself with trail magic, with other people. And then on the other end of it, it's pure kindness from complete strangers, whether it's a meal, a hitch to and from town, getting to stay in their house. I mean, these are complete strangers to you, and just an act of kindness. So trail magic means a lot to me. And one of the things that over all the years, and it happens everywhere. I was in Scotland and I couldn't find a canister for my stove. And I came across a ranger in the middle of nowhere, and we were talking, and I was like, man, I wish I could make a hot meal. And he's like, you couldn't find a canister? I was like, nah. He's like, here, have one of mine. And it was a full-size big one. Beggars could not be choosers. I couldn't find one anywhere in Glasgow. And that's trail magic. Simple acts of kindness. So over all the ones that have been done to me, just about every single trail angel has said, pay it forward. Just pay it forward. So it means a lot to me to finally be able to pay that forward in my life, because as a recipient of trail magic and a long distance hiker with a lot of trail miles and a lot of experience, I think about what meant the most to me and how I liked it. So that usually translates to hot bed, great food, sitting by a campfire with a couple of beverages, and just enjoying a moment and giving somebody a moment to take a little time off trail, have some clean laundry, and it means a lot. It truly means almost as much, if not more, being able to give trail magic than it is to receive.
One of your standout posts is about hosting hikers, and I think you call it the Cheer Trail Angel experience.
Yes, we do.
With these epic multi-course meals, campfires, and true hospitality, how did that tradition start, and what has it taught you about the community?
Oh, so it started with a friend of mine. I started following her on her PCT journey back in 2019. she was going for her Triple Crown on the AT. So she'd done the PCT in 2019, broke up the CDT in 2021 and 22, and she finished up the AT as her Triple Crown in 2023. We hadn't ever gotten to see each other in person. We were able to see each other through a group she started called Thru-Hiker. So we were able to obviously know each other and everything else. So I was like, hey, can we host you? She was more than willing because the AT was really tough for her because it's not like the CDT or PCT. AT's brutal. So I had to talk it over with my family, talking to my wife, and she's like, you've never met this person in real life? I was like, no, but she's a good person. She's like, she could be a serial killer. I was like, no, generally speaking, thru-hikers are too hungry and too tired to be serial killers. They're exhausted. They want a place to crash and a hot shower and a good meal. So worked it out. Wife agreed. Picked her up at Pine Grove Furnace State Park in Pennsylvania, which is literally the halfway point, and it also happens to be the closest trailhead to my house. And finally got to see each other in person, caught up on life and trail life a little bit. And our first stop was a winery called Fury Vineyard. I was like, first stop is wine tasting. And keep in mind, this is June in Maryland and Pennsylvania. We're in our hiker gear and we swing by a fancy vineyard for wine tasting. So that's how it starts out. and then we go to my house, and it happens to be a friend of ours, Librarian Annie's birthday. So it was Librarian Annie, Detective Ben, who's with Baltimore PD, and my son and Tisha, Cheer, and me. So have all this planned out, multi-course meal. I'm fortunate that over the years, I've been able to take several culinary courses. One of the things I love to do when I go to different regions of our country, and definitely when I go to another country, I try to either take culinary course or I talk with a chef at a restaurant and get a few culinary tips, and then I incorporate it into my own chef skills. So now the recipients of the Cheer Trail Angel experience get the benefits of that, and the very first one is the one it's named after, which is Cheer. So multi-course meal, full resupply, beverages by the campfire afterwards. We were shooting the bull until probably for real midnight, not just hiker midnight. And she finally crashed. She had her whole basement to herself, real bed, real shower, everything else. And she crashed until probably about 10 o'clock. I was like, huh? I was like, man, should we go down and check on her? And my wife's like, no, she's tired. She's hiked 1,100 miles. I'm just like, okay. Even my dog was like sleeping with her for a little while. Scout was actually sleeping with her, and that didn't even wake her up, which is surprising because Scout's about a 110-pound fluffy dog. Finally got up and washed up and nice breakfast spread, packed up and took it back to trail and came back. And of course, Tisha and Librarian Annie were like, you didn't tell us she was going to be that wonderful. And I was like, wait a minute, you two were the ones that were saying that she was a serial killer, and now you two are claiming her as your friend, and she's not my friend anymore. What just happened here? That was the start of the Cheer Trail Angel experience, and we've had some interesting ones. So that was year one in 2023. And then the next year, got to host, I corresponded a little bit with Quadzilla, and we're like, hey, I know you guys are busting out some giant miles that I don't even want to think about doing, because they were doing like 30s and the occasional 40s on the AT. I'm just like, I think I did 130 the entire time on the AT, and I felt like garbage 2 days afterwards. I was like, you guys are welcome to do that. But I said corresponding a good bit. And so once again, picked them up from Pine Grove Furnace, brought them back, and I had, again, every time it expands a little bit. So this time it expanded into a 7-course meal. Everything was laid out, sushi, steaks, shrimp, fresh veggies, fresh fruit, the whole schmeal. And for a good 3 hours, they ate and ate well. And afterwards, after kitchen was being redone, the dishwasher was down. It's like, hey, if you guys help me clean up a little bit, we have beer, bourbon, and cigars waiting for us at the campfire. So that was a very quick cleanup, and out to the campfire we went. And once again, Librarian Annie came over, Tisha was over, and we all shot the bull. Again, it was probably midnight before we concluded that evening. evening. And then same thing. It was probably about 10 o'clock before the guys got up. They finished washing all their clothes. Thankfully, we were all close enough in size that they could all wear my loaner clothes until their clothes were done. So full laundry, full showers, and back to trail.
Man, what a awesome experience that you've been able to share. And like you said, pay it forward from your own trail magic that you received. And now you're giving it to others that are on the AT. You know, one thing that also caught my attention is that you also thru-hiked the Trans-Catalina Trail, which is on my bucket list.
Oh, dude, you've got to do it. In fact, do it next year.
I have it saved because I think it's in January when the permit lottery goes out, if I'm not mistaken. I knew about the foxes on the island, but I didn't know that there was bison. I think I recently saw a post of somebody posted a video of bison on Catalina Island. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience on that trail?
Absolutely. And again, mine goes back a ways. So I'd heard about it, early 2000s. And I was out in California and I was definitely given it a think or two. And then I read about the fact that you have to have permit for the campsites. You cannot do any stealth camping, can't bring your own fuel on the ferry over. So I was just like, man, I don't know if they're going to have fuel for my stove. It was so last minute at that point that I definitely couldn't score a permit, even just being by myself. So fast forward many years, and in 2023, the group I belong with, that is actually their annual kickoff to the hiker season. So they do it in either April or May every single year now. And in 2023, it was like early April, and I was super psyched to finally get to do it. And it was over my son's birthday. And I was like, yeah, can't do it over my son's 13th birthday. So did it the following year, and I'm glad I did, because it was just three of us, which is good for me because, again, like everybody, you have your good and your bad moments with group hiking. Group hiking's an interesting dynamic, but this one was really good. So we had a newer hiker. She'd done some overnights before, but she'd never done an actual thru hike, and she was from the Ontario, Canada area. And then we had one person from Southern California who put it together. It's like her go-to trail, and then me coming from Maryland. It was perfect, and we had great weather. It is a tough trail. It's 40 miles, but the elevation gain is something like 10,000 feet, so it's got some tough sections in it. But it's so beautiful. It's definitely top 3 or 4 trails for beauty I've ever been on, ever. And just the wildlife, the bike. Yeah. So when we were, I think it was day 2. And of course, there's great food there, so you can have great food. I'm flip-flopping a little bit back and forth here, but I think it was the second day we were heading out of the airport, which got hit the airport. Food is phenomenal, and if it's like a misty, chilly day, they have a fire going in the fireplace and good music, good food. It's just a friendly cat that was super nice. That great staff. It was just everything you want in a stop. And then so we were heading out, and there was a huge herd of bison, and it had to be 30, 40, 50. So it was a good size herd. I might have to check my own pictures and count how many. There might have been more than that. And then, of course, going down, there was a big bull. He was probably, I wish I could remember the name of it, but yeah, he was a big bull, and he was right next to the road. So we very carefully went around them, did not want to look threatening, wanted to give him lots of space, but yeah, that was an experience. And all of the campsites are some of the most beautiful you could ever hope to stay at. And the one, I believe it's Parsons Landing, is probably easily top 3 or 4 campsites I've ever seen in my life. And I had to cut it short a little bit because there's a couple ways you can do the last day. You can go over the top and super steep decline, or you can go back and to and from on the road walk. And I chose, again, choose your own hike your own hike. I chose to do the easier way because my brother, I'd gotten in touch with my brother who lives in LA. He's like, hey, do you want to go to this Michelin rated restaurant in Beverly Hills when you get off the trail? I was like, yes, I do. yes, I do want to do that. So I was thinking to myself, I cannot be wrecked in order to be able to enjoy this. And I had to switch my ferry time around to early morning. So I got up like super early. I got up probably like 3:30 in the morning, and I hated cutting that night short because we had a campfire on the beach, and it was just every picturesque island experience that you could have wanted at that campsite with the three of us. So, but had to call it an early night then, and then get up super early to make darn sure I got back to Two Harbors in time to make the ferry. And that was one of the few times in my life that I overestimated my abilities. I got there like 3 hours early. I was like, crap, I could have gotten like a couple extra hours sleep, hung out by the fire a little longer. But yeah. And of course, one of our friends, the friend from Ontario area, stayed behind because she had a later flight. And my other friend and I took that ferry back, said our goodbyes, and yeah, cleaned up, got some nice loner clothes because all I was wearing out in LA was hiker gear. And then Beverly Hills that night. So that was a convoluted, amazing, epic experience. Definitely do it.
I gotta ask, was the restaurant, did it live up to the Michelin star?
Oh, absolutely. It was just phenomenal. And we ordered one of everything on the menu, and there was four of us. So it was my brother, his partner, and one of his work friends, and it was just spectacular. I was like, this is how you end the hike.
That's right. Now, you've also done some traveling abroad. I think you've been up to 25 countries, and you even stealth camped in Norway. What was it like taking your skills abroad?
I love combining all of my outdoor skills when I visit a place. So when I go abroad, I do a good bit of research. I always find out of some of their local customs. I try to learn some phrases. Thankfully, I had a friend that is from Norway, so I kind of contacted her a few weeks before heading out, maybe even a couple months before I headed out, so she could literally teach me some phrases, answer questions, of which I had a lot. Norway has been on my bucket list since very early on. I literally had to flip the coin in my early adventure days between Thailand and Norway. And Thailand won that coin flip, and I finally, many years later, had a chance to experience Norway, and it just was spectacular. I also like bushcrafting, and I know a lot of Norwegians like to do bushcrafting, so I brought some of my bushcrafting gear with me. I always take a paper map with me because I've had electronics fail on me too many times to rely on electronics, so I definitely brush off the old map and compass skills. Orienteering is your friend. So I got over there, and it was beyond anything I'd ever hoped for. It's literally in their constitution that not only is stealth camping allowed, it's actually encouraged in their constitution. And the scenery, the people, the culture, everything was just spectacular. People couldn't have been nicer. I could go on and on about it. You want me to talk about Norway? I'll talk about Norway forever because it was definitely beyond anything I could have imagined.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that it's either at the top of the list or near the top of the list of favorite countries visited, right?
It's top 2 or 3. Yeah.
Definitely a bucket list for me and a lot of others. Kind of switching gears, you've been able to share moments with trail icons like Heather Anish Anderson and Christine Lady Unicorn Reed. You've also introduced your son to the outdoors, especially like picking out rocks as souvenirs. What does legacy mean to you when it comes to passing on the love of the trail?
So I wish I could say my son has a love of through hiking like me. He doesn't have it yet. Hopefully he will, but he truly appreciates being outdoors, and we're fortunate enough to live where we do out in the country. So he loves being in nature. He likes camping on our property. Doesn't want to venture out into the great unknown yet, but one of the things he does appreciate is the fact that myself and others do like to go to these places. And when I was in Scotland and finally got to Scotland in 2022, had a little thing called the COVID-19 kind of kill my plans in 2020 for that one. So finally got to visit Scotland, and I was like, what do you want me to bring back? You want me to bring back like a Rangers jersey? And he's like, bring me back a rock, Dad. I'm like, Okay. So when I was on Ben Letty, that was the first one. And my tradition has always been to take a picture of the rock from where I'm getting it. But he truly appreciates that. And when you talk about legacy, it's passing it down and passing on, even if they don't get a chance to do it, being able to instill in them the love of nature, love of conservation, love of the natural world that we get in and we get to heal in.
I feel like, that's where the seed gets planted, with just enjoying being outside and enjoying the outdoors. And, that could lead you to so many great recreational opportunities, not just hiking and backpacking, but so much more. And that is such a great tradition to not only bring a rock back, but then show where you actually picked up the rock and where it came from. That's really awesome. Now, one of our regular segments that we like to do here on the podcast is do a deep dive into our guest's Instagram and highlight a specific post or reel. And the one that caught my attention was your epic summer road trip, where you and your cousin drove through 11 states, visited places like Mackinac Island, Sturgis, as well as several national parks. And this is all before smartphones. You were just relying on AAA maps and a compass. Can you share a little bit more about that adventure and what it taught you about travel and living a rich life?
Oof. Yes, it was a rich life and we were broke kids. So we've pulled our money, and it all started with the fact that this was the summer before I was attending Western. And I was like, man, I've got to do something big and major and something I can remember for the rest of my life. Because I don't know. I was like, here comes the real world. Work and more work, because I worked the entire time I was attending Western. I'd do 2 jobs there, and then I'd work full-time for Department of Natural Resources in Maryland, backtracking. So we were originally going to just go, and I say, quote unquote, just go from Maryland to Sturgis and back, just do an out and back. But then it started growing. It's like, I don't know if he said it or somebody said, he's like, you have your pilot's license and you belong to EAA, Experimental Aircraft Association. I was like, sure do. It's like, why don't you go to Oshkosh, Wisconsin for the fly-in? It was probably my mother, because my mother was a private pilot. She wanted to have a second pilot in the family, and there was no way my father or older brother were going to do it. So that left me. So she's like, I pay our dues. Why don't you use our card to get in there? I was like, okay. So we went to there. Absolutely amazing experience. We got to go on, like I said, got to flash my EAA card. So we got to go to all the seminars and get on the tarmac and met General Chuck Yeager and all these super famous pilots and get to actually check out all the airplanes. And like I said, that was the 3 nights we were there. So we stayed there, which is the University of Wisconsin. And from there, we traveled over to, I'm trying to think. We went through Minnesota, so we went to Mall of America, and we went to Sturgis. And yeah, my MC had rented out a bed and breakfast in this tiny little hamlet called Vale, South Dakota, which is about 15, 20 miles outside of Sturgis, and got to go past the famous Buffalo Chip campground and everything. It was a full experience, and my dear cousin was not ready for that. So he kind of did his thing and I did mine. But one of the things that happened, you talk about not having cell phones or anything else, we were going to meet at the infamous wall drug. See the signs for it everywhere. And I was riding my bike, my Harley, and he was taking the truck, and I ran out of gas. And you talk about a mini epic adventure. So he kept going. I ran out of gas. Another MC came up to me. He's like, hey, you okay? I was like, nope, out of gas. And he's like, okay, 2 guys are going to hop on my bike. 2 guys are going to guard your bike. We'll get some gas and we'll go. I was like, all right. Went back, got some gas, started going. Thankfully, I had a little bit of money on me. Stopped at a rest stop, met a old school, super leathery cowboy who's like, you hungry? I was like, yep. So shared some stories. It was trail magic before I knew what trail magic was. It just had to be in his 80s and just like as leathery as could be. So we were talking about different horses, different hunting calibers. We both loved 300 Winchester Magnum. Talked about hunting trips and cowboying and all sorts of stuff. And he's like, man, I wish you were my kid because mine are worthless jerks. I was like, I do too, especially since he had like a 8,000 acre ranch in South Dakota somewhere. was like, that'd be cool. But I finally made it to the Wall Drug, didn't see my cousin, hung out there for a little bit, went back to another rest area, met a super nice lady there, and she's like, you gonna have some fun when you get to Sturgis? And I was like, I think I've kind of earned it. She's like, here's $20, kid. Go have some fun. I was like, well, so we won't get into that too much, but I had some fun that night. And then the next day, it was funny. I was going in and the same thing happened. Pulled up next to a lady who was by her bike. And I was like, you guys okay? And it's like, nope, ran out of gas. I was like, you going to be okay? She has her 38 in her hand and she's like, yep, I'll be all right. I was like, good. Hang on to it. What's your husband's name? And I can't remember. We'll call him Hank. I was like, I can't remember his name. I was like, where are you guys from? They're from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So I was like, all right. Got his name, got where he's from. So about 3 miles down the road, see Hank. I was like, hey, just talk to your wife, Wendy. Hop on my bike. Same thing happened to me yesterday. So got some gas, same thing. They're like, hey, why don't we pay for gas for your bike and have a beer at the Broken Spoke? I'm like, okay. So that was that Sturgis experience, and there were a few others too. And then from Sturgis, we went up to North Dakota, went to Theodore Roosevelt National Park, went to see a friend of mine who was a rafting guide at Glacier National Park. So he got to stay indoors again for the first time in multiple weeks. That was nice. We got to have the full glacier experience, then headed south and went through Yellowstone and the Tetons and got to learn about an old school tradition at Yellowstone, which is all of the employees for almost since the inception of the park have a betting pool to see the date and time the first tourist gets bit, stomped, or gored by a bison. So got to learn learn a little bit about that tradition, and then I said headed south, headed through Rocky Mountain, and saw another friend of mine who was stationed at Fort Carson in Silver Springs, Colorado, and he took us up to Pikes Peak and went to the Garden of the Gods. And again, we got to stay in his barracks, so got a roof over our heads. So there's a whole lot more to it, but it was, like I said, for a couple of kids, it was just an absolute epic adventure that it's tough to top that one.
It definitely took me back. One of my fondest traditions that me and my core group of high school friends did is after we graduated high school, we did a big road trip to the Oregon coast. I remember my buddy, his parents were AAA members, so he had the AAA maps. Every summer through college, we would do that trip, and then we're ultimately making our way down to California, Nevada, and then back up. It brings you joy to know that people are still out there helping folks out in a pinch and being really welcoming in those experiences. So I'm glad you're able to share that story. Would you ever go back and do it now all over again?
Absolutely. One of the most memorable, and of course, like I said, we were using this was before digital cameras, so we were using my good camera broke, so we were using a crappy, not quite disposable, but it was not high end by any means. And one of the memories that unfortunately we didn't get to capture was when we were in Michigan, and we were at a park outside of Detroit. We actually went to a Tigers game. That was pretty cool. So came back, and that night, some of the campers next to us were like, hey, my father-in-law had to sell his bike to pay some bills, and that was one of my daughter's favorite things to do with my father-in-law. And she was wondering, she wanted me to come over and ask you if you'd take her for a ride on your bike. And she was like maybe 4 or 5 years old, tiny little blonde girl. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I was like, we'll take her for a ride and all be well. So comes over, she had a Daytona Bike Week shirt on. She's like, are we still going for a ride? I was like, absolutely, hop on. So literally got to take this little girl again, I guess they were holding my cousin hostage because they didn't know me from anybody, but it was super cool to do that for them. And the mom was like, hey, can take a couple of pictures and send it to us. And unfortunately the film wasn't loaded right. I was just like, so I had to write her a note. I was like, here's your $5 back. I'm so sorry. She wrote me back. She's like, it's okay. It's still one of my daughter's favorite memories ever. I was like, okay. So it wasn't too terrible. But yeah, just those kind of moments, meeting real people.
Well, that was it for the regular questions. These last couple questions are questions we like to ask all our guests. The first one is, when it comes to hiking, whether you're backpacking, through hiking, or just day hiking, do you have a regular summit routine or end of the hike routine? For a lot of us, it's packing the favorite snack or drink. For others, it's a moment of zen. And then for a lot, it's that favorite meal afterward. Is there a regular customer routine that you like to do when you reach your destination, or maybe when you make it back out?
I do, and it's super cheesy. When I reach a summit, I actually like to do the yoga mountain pose when I get to the top of a summit. So, yep, I do.
I like that.
That's my routine.
Do you snap a picture each time, or?
Sometimes, if I can. I'm usually solo, so if I think about it, I'll whip out the tripod. But a lot of times, it's just that moment's just for me.
Now, this next one, I'm always curious, especially when it comes to thru-hikers. Is there a luxury item that you tend to pack that falls outside of the essentials?
Oh, yeah. I have a few. So definitely one of my luxury items, I'd love my titanium chopsticks. So that's definitely one. I definitely always like to bring a good knife with me for a variety of reasons, just because, like I said, I'm a bushcrafter, but every single trip I use that. And another luxe item that it could or could not be considered a luxe item, but I like to have leather work gloves with me so that if I need to pick up something hot, if I need to move something out of the way that's thorny and going to stick me, I can use that. So I have a few.
This last one is about any upcoming hiking or travel goals. We're recording this at the beginning of the fall hiking season, but there's still plenty of hiking left. Is there anything exciting on the horizon that we should be looking out for?
Yes, I actually have two. So a special one coming up for me is I'm heading up to the Catskills in October. Not only is it special for me because it's the 5-year anniversary of when my grandmother passed away, and I got to hear the news of it in 2020 when I got out of the Catskills. So that's kind of a coming full circle. But I'm also going up to the Omega Academy in central New York to attend Cheryl Strait's Writer's Workshop. So it's both Writer's Workshop and hiking opportunity. That's one that's coming in October. And then in November, I love going down to Shenandoah. Shenandoah in early November is one of my favorite places to be in the world.
That was it for the regular questions. We always like to finish off the podcast with the this or that questions. For season 12, we have some new ones, and then we also added some backpacking and through hiking this or that questions for this season. You're more than welcome to say both or neither, but the first one is, if you had to choose between these two hiking seasons, would you choose summer or fall?
Fall. Yep.
And then I think I know the answer to this one, but if you had to choose, would you choose waterfalls or summits?
Man, that one's tough. I'm still going with summits. I love waterfalls so much, and you've got so many great ones in the Pacific Northwest. I got to go to Mount Nomath back in 2019. I was like, oh my gosh, that. And then I also got to experience Niagara in 2019 for the first time. But yeah, it's still summits.
I'm interested in hearing this response because you've experienced both of them, both on the AT and PCT. But if you had the choice to, reach a summit, would you choose a switchback route or a straight up route?
Switchback. Yeah. Some of those ones that are just like going straight up and just like, man, why don't you guys put some grades in here? So yeah, I've done some pretty crazy ones abroad and everywhere else. I'm like, yeah, I'll take a switchback.
And then the most controversial one, do you use trek poles or are you freehand?
Oh, trek poles. Absolutely. No question about it. That's like a sleeping pad. The first time I ever used trekking poles, never went back. First time I got to use a sleeping pad of any kind, I was like, yeah, I don't consider those luxe items. Those are just mandatory.
And then this next one's about your footwear. Are you using trail runners or traditional hiking boots?
I'm generally, and I've probably tried 9 or 10 styles in about 4 or 5 different types of trail runners. Still haven't found one yet. I'm traditional-ish boots, but I am trying, Obo's got some new ones out that I've been breaking in, so it's kind of a hybrid. They're mids, so they're not traditional hiking boots, but they're still mids.
Let me know how those work out, because I've been piloting just using trail runners this summer hiking season, and I think I need to go with a wider toe box, but I do like the comfort of a mid hiking boot just to get that extra protection around the ankle.
So I haven't given up on trail runners. Everybody's like, I was like, hike your own hike. I was like, I like what I like. hopefully someday I'll find a trail runner that actually say, this is the one, but I haven't found it yet.
Now, this next one's about trail systems. If you had to choose, would you choose a loop trail or an out and back trail?
Ooh, depends on my mood. Traditionally, I'd say loop trail, but I'm good for an out and back too, so I'm going to go both. It literally depends on my mood and the weather too. Weather can play a factor.
And then this next one is, when it comes to these trail hazards, would you choose a muddy trail or a rocky trail?
Rocky trail if I have good boots on, which I generally do.
And then this one's going to be one of the tougher ones, but if you had to choose, would you choose a sunset hike or a sunrise hike?
I love both. I can't choose because I love both of them. I'm a magic hour kind of guy. So what's better than one magic hour? 2 magic hours.
And now this next one's a tough one as well, but I think I know your response, or I think I might know your response. Spring wildflowers or fall colors?
Born in April, but I'm a fall foliage kind of guy. I love spring, but fall's my jam.
So this next one is new for this season. When it comes to electrolytes, are you a tablet or a powdered drink guy?
I'm more of a powdered drink guy. I'll dump them in and shake it up, but I'm not opposed to tablets. I've thought about adding some tablets to my gear too, just because like most hikers, I've gotten pretty bad dehydration before, and it is no fun at all. So check your electrolytes.
These next few are specifically for our backpackers and thru-hikers. If you had to choose between these two, would you choose bug bites or a sunburn?
Oof. Man. That's a toughie. I'll take sunburn because I'm part Choctaw, so after like my first initial minor burn in the season, I get super, super dark.
Now, this next one is about trail hazards, and you've experienced both of them on the AT and the PCT. But if you had to choose between these two, would you choose a stream crossing or a snowfield traverse?
Oh, spring. I'll take that. This only gets really old real quick.
Now, this last one is also new, but when it comes to through hikes or backpacking trips, are you ultralight or luxury item?
Definitely not UL, but definitely, gosh, my pack's probably at least 20 pounds lighter than it used to be. So just because I always put safety first, and I know what I can carry, I know my abilities, and of course I'm always trying to go lighter like everybody else, but I'm not sacrificing safety, and there's certain things I definitely like to bring along. I'm not a gram weenie, so somewhere in between.
Well, that was it for the this or that questions. Paladin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. For folks that want to follow you along on social media or online, where are some of the places they can find you at?
They can find me on Instagram at bencox357, and I'm also an active member and ambassador for Thrower. So you can find me at thrower.com at THRU''R.
We'll be sure to put those in the episode show notes so people can follow along. Thank you once again for joining us on the podcast. It has been an absolute blast hearing about your experiences, and I can't wait to see what not just 2025 has in store for you for the last couple months of the year, but what 2026 has to offer.
I've got some ideas for 2026. Already in the planning.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Ben. We extend a heartfelt thanks to them for joining us on the podcast. Be sure to follow them on Instagram at bencox357. And for more, be sure to check out the episode show notes. This episode of Hikes and Mics was produced by Jordan Smith. Be sure to follow her adventures on Instagram at jordan.journeys. New episodes will drop every Monday throughout the fall hiking season, with occasional Friday bonus episodes sprinkled in. To make sure you never miss a moment of these inspiring trail stories, hit the follow or subscribe button. Your support truly keeps this community growing. Don't forget to connect with us on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. That's where you'll find behind-the-scenes episode visuals, my own hiking adventures, and plenty more to keep the fall inspiration flowing. As we wrap up today's journey, remember, the trails may be covered in leaves, but the spirit of adventure is wide open. So tread those happy trails, breathe in that crisp autumn air, and keep exploring. Until next time, my fellow hikers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, ursaminoroutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, ursaminoroutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order.